Today, we'll be talking to Steve Hoffman, one of the founders of Founderspace, one of the strongest incubators in the Bay Area. Now, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Hoffman.
Sure.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about Founderspace? What is it? Why'd you create it?
So Founderspace started over 5 years ago. I had done 3 venture-funded startups, and I was taking a break. I was like, I need a break. And all my friends here, I live in San Francisco, started to come to me and say, Steve, how'd you raise the money? How'd you get going? What did you do? How do we do our investor deck? How do we do our business plan? So I literally started just helping my friends. And I started not as a business, but just for fun. So it was a hobby. I'd go out to coffee with them. I'd help them with their business plan. I'd introduce them to some investors, give them feedback. And what I found was that all of my friends had a lot of questions. And most of their questions were very similar. So on my blog, I started to post answers to those questions. And those answers, suddenly people started sharing them. So my blog started to become more popular. I named it Founderspace. That's where the name came from. The domain was available. And then I said, well, that's great. As soon as the blog started to become popular, all these other startup entrepreneurs started to come to me and say, Steve, I need help, but I didn't know who they were. So I'd have to meet them. So I started to form a group here in San Francisco, which we also called Founderspace, where we'd get together in a building like this, but we were doing it all over the place, where we'd meet once a month. We'd get in founders, we'd get in angel investors, we'd get in lawyers, experienced entrepreneurs, and just really help startups solve their problem. So that Founderspace, we call them roundtables, started here in the city. Then they moved to Silicon Valley. Then we had them in New York, Texas, Los Angeles, as far away as Singapore, all over the place. We just kept growing and growing and growing. And at a certain point, all of these founders were like, well, we want a full incubator, an accelerator. We don't, these roundtables are great, the events are great, everything you're doing, but we want more. So we started our incubator and accelerator program here in San Francisco, and now it's expanded all around the world.
That's incredible. It's an incubator by the people for the people.
That's what, for me it was a hobby, which has now become full-time.
That's incredible.
It's still fun.
That's awesome. So what did you say you did before you did Founders?
Oh, I just did a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff?
I've been everything from
a
manga rewriter with Naruto, The Ring, and many other mangas, all the way to making movies. I worked in Hollywood, for a film production company, did all that stuff. I produced many, many games in my lifetime. So mobile games, online games, all sorts of games. I worked for Sega and video games. Then I did venture-funded startups, interactive TV startups, game startups, media startups of my own that were venture-funded, and now I'm doing Founderspace.
That's incredible. So if you could offer any advice to investors, your top 3 pieces of advice that you've gleaned throughout the years.
To investors or startups looking for investment?
Investors and then starters.
Okay. So investors.
Yes, please.
So most investors are pretty naive, especially angel investors. And even venture capitalists. So there are some very, very smart venture capitalists out there who really know how to identify winning companies. But, I talk to especially overseas investors, spend a lot of time in China and other places. A lot of them just don't know. They're not disciplined. They don't have a methodology for evaluating startups. And they really don't know the criteria of what makes a company take off. They just look at it and go, oh, that's a cool VR startup. It's really hot. We'll put money in. And that's their criteria. Right? They don't know anything about the fundamentals of the business. And what they don't do, typically, is ask the right questions. So great investors really go deep with the startup. So they go deep into 3 questions, I'll say. Number 1, they go deep into the customer, like who the customer is, why that customer is using the product. They want to not just talk to the entrepreneur about the customer. They want to make sure the entrepreneur knows exactly who their customer is, but they want to go directly to the customer and validate what the entrepreneur says with the customer. Number 2, they need to ask questions about why is this product different from all the other products on the market? What's the secret sauce? What makes this product really explode, right? What have they figured out that nobody else in the industry really understands that's going to make their product go huge and beat out the competitors? Because honestly, if you're a Me Too product, which I'd say 80% of the startups are Me Too, they have different features, but those features don't offer a core fundamental value that's different from what's out there in the competition.
So you like a uniquity factor.
Yeah, it can't just be like we have this feature.
Yeah.
A feature is something you add on to something, a core value. It has to be, we use this product in a different way. This product does something different for us than the other products out there. It's not Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It's not just another way to connect to my friends. It's like Snapchat offered the disappearing messages initially. That allowed them to gain a lot of traction because that was a feature that teenagers couldn't get with Facebook Messenger or anywhere else. You know, they were sending these messages, sexting often, and they wanted those things to go away.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by core value. It's not just another messenger.
So it's a fundamental difference. Our VR videos primarily go back to China, where we're trying to introduce customers to the Silicon Valley, right? So what do you think is the best aspect of the Silicon Valley that you don't get anywhere else?
Okay, I'll tell you. So we opened in China.
Yeah.
So we opened Founder Space in Shanghai. I was there for the past 5 weeks in like 8 cities. But so I know what China thinks, and I know what they don't have. So what they don't have, that's the one magic thing. So China has a lot of capital. China has huge government support. China has tons of incubators and accelerators. China has tons of startups. But what they don't have, and China will innovate, right? Because now they have to. They're being forced to innovate. Because everybody in Silicon Valley would copy if they could. Honestly, if there was another country out there that was ahead of us,
we'd copy it.
We'd copy and bring it to Silicon Valley because like it worked. They did the discovery part, which I said was brutal, where most of the startups die. We've been doing that for China, right? The discovery part. So why wouldn't they copy?
Yeah.
But now it's much harder because there's a gazillion startups and they're all copying at the same time. So they will begin to innovate for the same reason we do because it's
necessity.
Necessity is the mother of invention. But what don't they have? They don't have the diversity we have. So Silicon Valley has been blessed with a vast array of creative people from right now coming from all over the world. So we have artists and scientists, biologists even, and musicians and technologists and investors and MBAs and finance people coming from every corner of the world, motivated to start companies, and they're all mixing. They're from India, they're from Israel, they're from Poland, they're from China, they're from every corner of the globe. Like every day I'm having fun. Like startup founders are super smart people. You get to interact with them and discover new ideas every day. Investors are super smart people. I get to travel the world to all these other cultures and learn about them. I've never been happier, but I've done so many wonderful things. I always just follow my heart. So I'm like a true Silicon Valley person. It's the other thing that distinguishes Silicon Valley is we're just like dreamers, Like people who come here and stuff, we just like to dream. So like, I wanted to do games, I go and make games. I wanted to be in the film industry, I made films. I was into manga, I did the manga thing. I made animations. I had some real jobs in my career, right? Yeah. And all of that blended together, I think makes me relate really well to entrepreneurs and that's why I'm an entrepreneur, because I like doing those things.
That's incredible. Yeah. On a slightly more tangible note, a lot of entrepreneurs, they go through a lot more harder things. It's a lot harder for entrepreneurs. It's a lot harder for investors.
Right.
So what were some of the hardest things you've had to go through as a creator, as a dreamer? What were some of the harder things?
Well, failure is always hard, right? Yeah. Failure's gotten much easier. So when I started, I'm a little older than you. But when I started my career, failure was really frowned upon. Like you failed, you were a failure. Right?
Yeah.
Now we're like, you failed, okay, try again, which is really how it should be. But earlier on, I don't think failing is easy for anybody even now. And different personality types are different. The more ambitious you are, which tend to be entrepreneurs, the harder you take failure because you're like, I should have succeeded. Yeah. So, I had many things fail. I tried many things, and of course, a number of them failed. And picking myself up from those, getting back on my feet, going back out there, reestablishing, in my own head, my credibility, not in other people's head. I think usually you defeat yourself, right? You're like, I can't do it. I can't go back out there, right? What will people think of me? Or I can't even have faith in myself. Those were the hardest challenges I had. I blocked myself for a number of years in actually thinking, I can't do this, right? It's like, it's not me, like it's not who I am. But learning that actually made me better teacher, which I am now, to entrepreneurs. And if I had had a string of you know, if I'd been Elon Musk, where I never failed, right? And I could even send people to Mars, maybe, right?
Maybe.
And not fail at the most impossible task that, you know, mankind has ever undertaken. But if you research it, right?
Yeah.
But most people aren't that lucky
Yeah.
and that smart, and I was probably not either that lucky or that smart. But then maybe I'm a better teacher than Elon Musk because, you know, he probably hasn't had, you know, to go through as many hard times. Who knows?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that looking at yourself as a unique person, like my own struggles, and looking at where I fell short in managing people, you know, if you fail, you go through a lot of stuff. You have to lay off employees, right? You have to do a lot of shitty things that really have you question who you are, and then you learn, like, oh, that wasn't the right way to lay off an employee. Like, that was like, I could do a better job at this, you know, because you feel very awkward. All those things end up making you better, but you pay a price along the way.
Okay. Thank you so much. These are some great answers.
Sure.